Good evening, welcome back to another instalment of the Night Lighthouse. Pleasure to have you. I know what you're thinking, pleasure to be here. You're welcome. What a day it's been. It's been a huge day, apparently. Can you guess what day I'm recording this? That's right, it is the day that His Royal Highness, the never gonna make it to the throne, is marrying Mrs. Suits. And apparently we're all supposed to go nuts for it. And to be fair, a lot of people are. I was out before having a walk around and I thought where I live there'd be lots of flags and stuff like that. No, none of it. None of it at all. I can't smell any barbecues. It's a lovely summer's day. A royal wedding. People are supposed to go nuts for it. I thought there'd be stuff everywhere, but nope. Went out before into town. Heaving. People aren't staying at home watching a royal wedding. I thought they would be, but they're not. I saw more colour, no joke, I think, on the pavement than in people's windows. No Union Jacks flying, nothing like that. There's a house down the street which has got the George Cross, which is the English flag rather than the British flag, but they've got it there 365 days a year. I presume they're slightly xenophobic. But having said that, maybe they're just proud to be English, which doesn't make them xenophobic. But there's something about an English flag flapping in the wind all day long, all year round. Not just on, St. George's Day or anything like that. No. Full-time English flag waving. It seems somehow a little bit off to me, but that's probably unfair. Anyway, that's for them to do. But yeah, all around the streets around here, purple paint. I don't know if they're doing this anywhere else in the country or indeed the world, but we've got a bit of a problem around my way with dog poo, by which I mean dogs pooing on the street. No, the problem is not the dogs pooing on the street. I'm pretty sure they've always done that. The problem is the owner's not picking it up afterwards, which they're supposed to do. So you've always kind of you walk almost a zombie trance looking at the floor. You must always look a few feet in front of you just to make sure you don't step in it. Literally step in it. I've not stepped in dog poo for years. I felt like when I was a kid, you'd always step in dog poo. I never do anymore. Which maybe means there was more of it back then. I mean, maybe I was more careless back then, but maybe there was just more of it, and it's not as big a problem as we think. Anyway, so they've got this initiative round here. We got a letter through the door. Purple. Purple is going to solve all this. It's a genius idea. What happens is these people wander the streets looking for the offending item, and when they see it, they spray it purple. Well, they spray a big circle of purple all around it. The idea is it makes it more noticeable. I'm not sure if that paint glows in the dark, as I've not been out in the dark yet, but I'll go and have a look. And the idea is that somehow it's supposed to shame the owner, but I don't quite know what. I mean, do they later in the day they walk past the same spot and they see their dog's feces spray painted purple and they think, oh God, that's my fault. Oh God, that's me. That's my dog. I doubt they even remember where their dog shit. But the problem is, I mean, like I said, poo's always been there. It's a fact of life. But that purple paint ain't shifting. It doesn't seem to come out in the rain or anything. So we're getting increasingly neon day-glow pavements round here. It's like a Prince video. Purple poo. That lesser-known B-side version. Now on vinyl, the lesser-known B-side collection. Prince. Purple poo. Purple poo, purple poo. Purple poo, purple poo. That was actually the original draft of that song. And the management called him up and said, listen, Prince, I think you've got a hit on your hands here, but you just can't call a hit song Purple Poo. And he was like, why not? And they're like, it just doesn't work. You're going to have to change it to something else. And he goes like, what? And they said, I don't know, think of something. So he did another draft and it was purple urine, purple urine. And again, they called him up and they said, I'm not quite sure what you're not getting about this, Prince. Hit songs, you don't have a hit song about bodily waste. That's just not the way it works. Can you write, how about Purple Rain? Purple Rain. And Prince is like, Purple Rain, what's that? Doesn't even make any sense. And he refused. So the management just went, oh, whatever. And then they hired a sound-alike to overdub the word rain on top of the word poo. He didn't even know till it was on the radio that they changed it. Oh, he was livid. I know all this very well because his dad because his dad's local. I used to cut his hedges when I was in school. His dad, the king, yeah. I've totally lost my thread now. Yeah, so there's this purple poo. Well, the idea is that the poo is identified and highlighted, literally highlighted with a purple paint. And then a secondary unit then walks the same path later and then collects the poo. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why doesn't the initial unit collect rather than spray paint? There must be a reason for it. I ain't got a clue. This is very much a local council thing. Can you imagine the pitch meeting for that? Somebody was trying to impress the boss there, weren't they? And they were like, that's because it's got the hum of an idea, which is a better idea than it is a reality. But you know it pitches well. You know with confidence someone stood up in front of a presentation and pitched this. And people don't necessarily care about the end result. They just care about having had the idea to advance their own progress in things. And you know that's the way it was. And you know someone basically said, yeah, all right. Because they had a meeting. They had to sort out the poo problem. Has anyone got any ideas? And someone said, put up fine notices. And they were like, we've already done that. Which they have, by the way. They've had it for a while. Outside my house is a light post. And on this is a sign which says, clean up after your dog. If you do not clean up after your dog, there is a £1,000 fine. That's a lot of money for dog poo. £1,000. £1,000 for your dog taking a shit. You'd clean up your poo, wouldn't you? Except for the fact that who's going to report you? Who's going to see it? There's no police for this thing. There was poo outside the pavement the other day. What am I going to do? DNA sample it and try and match it to some dog to identify who I'm going to fine £1,000? Of course not. It's bollocks. It doesn't mean anything. So in the meeting, they were like, we've already done the signs. They don't work. Someone else had the idea, like, should we just have people clean it up? No! Don't have them clean it up. That costs money. Why should we clean up their dog's poo? Someone else said, hang on a minute. We'll have a wander round. When we see the poo, we'll identify it with spray paint, which draws attention to it. A, stopping people stepping in it, and B, drawing shame on the person whose dog it is. And that's just disingenuous enough that people thought, yeah, that's interesting. It's just complicated enough, and yet somehow clever enough sounding that it obscures the simplicity of the task. And they were like, okay, so what do we do? And the pitch man said, well, I've got an idea. Brown spray paint. We will spray it brown, hence identifying it. And someone else said, probably the person who got dissed for having mentioned the go round and pick it up yourself job. But hang on, hands up in the air. He's really straining and everyone's ignoring him because no one likes him and he's really got his hand up. Me. And he's kind of waving it. And eventually his boss goes, yes, you, Davis. And Davis goes, poo's brown, sir. So what, Davis? Stop wasting my time. No, sir, poo's brown. So spraying the brown poo brown's not going to draw attention to it. And everyone goes, oh, he's right. Oh, it's a bust then. Okay, anyone got any other ideas? And the guy who pitched it went, no. Again, his hands up. And his moments waning. It's eking away. He was so close to greatness. And he goes, no, a purple paint. And everyone went, purple paint. And a revolution was begun in street cleaning maintenance. It's a nonsense, isn't it? So anyway, there's just this purple paint all over the streets around here. Every time I'm walking out, I see more and more purple paint all over the floor. I hope it scrubs off or eventually biodegrades or something. But it does not seem to be deterring anyone. The amount of purple paint I am seeing indicates that it is not deterring anybody. If anything, I think it's worse than it was because at least before if you're walking down the street, the other side of the street, there's poo, you wouldn't know it's there. But now you can't help but know there was poo there, or the poo is there, because it's fucking purple. Good old council. That's the thing, isn't it, about living in a neighbourhood by which, I mean, other people have to coexist with you, or rather you have to coexist with other people. Things like that. I mean, I don't have a dog, and if I did, I would certainly clean up after it, but you can't put your standards on everybody. You have to accept the fact that other people feel differently about things or don't feel at all about it, and hence probably why they leave it in that way. But yeah, having other people around's a pain, isn't it? It's like having neighbours. I mean, before I lived in this lighthouse, when I used to have regular neighbours, they're a pain, aren't they? They're nice enough people, don't get me wrong. Nice enough people. But it's like, I mean, you can they got a little daughter, and she's lovely. She's a nice little girl. But God, she's noisy, and she cries in the night and stuff. And my daughter did too. You know what I mean? I know I'm a hypocrite on this. But nonetheless, I'm kind of like, oh, God, she's woken up again. And you hear them talking. And the worst bit about hearing their life, as it were, is the realization that if I can hear them, they can hear me. Never hear them at it, though, I'll be honest. Now, it could be that they are quiet lovemakers. It could be they do it in the daytime while I'm out. It could be that, they're just not in that stage. It's all good. But if you do know my neighbours, do know that they never get laid. At least not to each other. I don't know what's going on, when he's gone out to meet his mates or something like that, Yeah, having neighbours sucks. I'm glad I don't have neighbours anymore. That's the good thing about living in a lighthouse. It's very much like, on a sunny day, there's people about, you can see people. But on a shitty day, the zombie apocalypse could have come and there's no one left. I could be the last man left alive. And I find that very appealing. I'm not going to lie, very appealing. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but I just if I could have a select few people survive, my family, a couple of friends, and I'd be very selective about those. What a simple world it would be. You could go looting. I've always wanted to go looting. But I don't want to get in trouble. That's the thing. I'm too much of a pussy to actually do it, but I would love to go looting. I'd like to go looting without the fear of being caught, so without the pressure, so leisurely looting. Once the world's over, what they're going to do, I can go into Dawson's, the music shop, and just effectively go guitar shopping. But it's like stealing, so it's guitar stealing. And take my time doing it. And just go to the supermarket, get all the food, get a generator straight away. I get a generator here in the lighthouse, so the freezers are working. I'd get another freezer in, big chest freezer, and I'd stock that up. I've thought this through, I would then find a base. So I would have, for example, a supermarket, and I would get quite a few generators in there to power the fridges. So that supermarket effectively stays in business. It's now my larder. It's a massive larder. And I would go to other supermarkets and just, before, I'd have to do all this in the first couple of days, I know this, get all the stuff in a van, which I've also stolen. It's not stealing anymore. It's using nature's resources now. I would stock them up, and then I would drive all that stuff, and I would stock up my larder supermarket with stuff. I would have then a lifetime supply of stuff in that supermarket. It's brilliant. Wouldn't that be great fun? Do what you want. It would be good. It would be good. Might be lonely. It depends if there's enemies or not. Like my favourite book, I think my favourite book is I Am Legend. In that book, it's vampires, and the last man alive effectively. Well, no spoilers. It's a brilliant ending. It's a brilliant book, and it's about more than what it ostensibly is. Yes, on the cover it is a book about vampires, but it's not really. It's not. It's a great book. So, yes, today has been the royal wedding day. If you are in Britain, you will know about this, as they've mentioned it once or twice every fucking place you go to. It's nuts. I mean, every shop has somehow tried to find a way to align itself with this. Buy your whatever to enjoy the big day. It's everywhere. But like I say, what you're seeing portrayed in the media, this excitement we're supposed to have, I'm not seeing reflected in my everyday life. I am not seeing the country grind to a halt while we all huddle round TV sets to watch the big event. No one is. I'm sure there's plenty of people who are, but there's plenty of people who fucking aren't, I'll tell you that right now. Do we care anymore? I mean, I'm not going to lie. This feels like a pretty low-stakes marriage, right? When William got married, that girl's going to be a queen. She's going to be the queen. That's a fucking big job. That's like when Christian Bale got Batman, yeah? That's like if you're an actor landing James Bond. These are big deals. That's like becoming the Prime Minister, the President. But more than that, because not only is it the big job, but it's also like a fairy tale. You literally marry the king and become a queen. I mean, he's not king yet, but he's going to be, isn't he? We all know, in his time, he's going to be a king, and she's going to be a queen. So that was a high-stakes wedding. When he chose her, or when they chose each other, he was effectively choosing which face is going to be on the commemorative plate which adorns this very lighthouse. Not really, I'm not a royalist. But this wedding today with poor Harry, I'm sorry, it's low stakes. I mean, yes, she's going to be a royal, but, you know, she's going to be the, you know, she doesn't even get the head gig with UNICEF. She's going to be doing, like, the Oxfam gig, you know? I'm sorry, which is extremely important. Extremely important. But nonetheless, he's never going to be king. She's never going to be queen. It's not so important. I'm sorry, it's true. It's a low-stakes wedding. So maybe that's why it's just not catching the imagination of people. Now, again, here's the dichotomy, isn't it, between what the papers and the press are presenting to me as being the national mood on this event and with what I'm actually seeing in my life. I don't think there's many people in my real life who are celebrating it. I'm not saying they're unhappy about it, but I bet they're going about their weekend. It's a nice weekend. I bet they're doing other things. Has royalty had its day then? I don't know. When I was younger, and I consider myself left-wing still, but when you're younger, you tend to be more vehemently something and more doggedly unflappable in your beliefs, purely because you have the energy to be like that. Reason doesn't always come into it. There's another dichotomy, isn't there, when you're younger about your politics. You're very narrow in your focus, and so not willing to address the other opinion. Sometimes purely because it is the other opinion. If you're hardcore left, making any concession to the right seems like a sellout or seems like you're doing wrong, even if on that one occasion they're being sensible, or even if there's a very obvious middle ground. You will almost be just absolutely disposed to be contrary for the sake of it, if only to be what you consider you are. When you get a bit older, you can see sometimes there's some middle ground. The dichotomy, when you're younger, that I mentioned, is that you so strongly hold those beliefs. You so strongly hold them because you believe it's the right thing, that you're not able to question them, and hence give them no scrutiny, really, and hence don't actually really give them any belief, if that makes any sense. It's like a role you're playing rather than a genuine belief you have, I think. Or rather, that should be you're doing it to appease yourself rather than for the actual good of what you believe it benefits. Anyway. When I was younger, I considered myself anti-royalty. A non-royalist or an anti-royalist. I don't know what the phrase is. For the usual things, they cost so much money, and what do they actually do for the country, and who the hell are they to live in these grand castles when the real people are struggling, and so on. All of which are still valid points of view, I think. But now you've got to see the flip side. Are they good for the economy? I think they must be. Tourism. We're a very small country, the UK. And yet we still have this prestige. We're still playing with the big boys, as it were. And I think that sort of thing feeds into it. We're seen as a good place to go on holiday. We're seen as a place people aspire to or want to come to. What an incredible thing. What an incredible thing. We should be proud of that. And if they're part of it, maybe they're earning their place. Now, I don't know the statistics and the numbers on this, and I'm not saying that is my final decision, but I no longer feel this antipathy towards them. I kind of think, well, fair enough. You could call them characters. They are characters in a play. They are actors that never get to break role. They are the ultimate method actors. The Queen is the Queen. If you were to meet her, I'm sure she might be a complete bitch. I don't know. Maybe not. William and Harry, they seem like decent fellas. Maybe they're complete dicks. I don't know. But they have to constantly be portraying themselves this way. They were born into fame, and they have to play the role. And yes, they've made some slip-ups. God knows they have, but God knows they're only human. And sometimes you've got to make those mistakes to be better at it, you know? And maybe this will be the new royalty, and maybe it will mean something. International relations, peace, could be a good thing. Could be a very good thing. We have elected politicians that I don't think any of us have any faith in anymore. I mean, none at all. Very few people have faith in our leadership. And that's not me talking about, because it's Conservative. I think even if it was Corbyn, even if it was Labour, quote-unquote left, people would have their suspicions of it. People are very dismissive and distrusting and questioning of our authority these days. Maybe we need... Now, I don't mean that we should have a totalitarian anything. I'm not saying the king should be the king and all that. No. I think they should still remain purely a figurehead. but they could be the voice that our elected officials are not. Our elected officials are so scared of saying the wrong thing and losing points that they won't say anything. They won't have any fucking balls. Well, a prince is a prince. You can't fire him. He can't get elected out. He's the prince. So maybe he's going to be the one that's got the fucking balls to stand up and say, no, that's not right. Interesting thought. If they've got some balls, they could be country changers. They really could. This could be a new beginning. And this could be a new role for them. Just a thought. But anyway, why do we all give a shit about the royal wedding? Maybe we don't. But at least with them, the royals, I can understand. They are these characters. They are these representatives of ours. So I can understand why people get excited about it and allow them their higher class status. We do have a class divide. Now, that's in every country, But what is class these days in modern Britain, or indeed the modern world, or the modern developed world? I don't really like using that phrase. I used to live next to a girl who once complained about my use of the phrase third world, and it stuck with me, and I thought, yeah, that's a legitimate complaint. I mean, they're all still people. Anyway. So what do we think about class? What class are you? What class do you class yourself in? In what class were you brought up? And are we bothered? Now, I want to say no, we're not. And I'm not to a point. But I'm a snob like everyone else sometimes. And I'm not proud of this. But, there's good and bad. Where I live, in this area, when I was buying this lighthouse, I had a few lighthouses to choose from around this city, because this city is well known for having an abundance of lighthouses. And, you've got different areas and some are larger than others, and you weigh it all up. And there's some areas you just don't want to live in because they are, in your mind, however you want to class that, I don't want to say bad areas, but not good areas. Not the best area. You will decide, okay, look, I can go to not the best area and have a significantly larger house. More land, bigger garden, double garage, because they're in that area. But I don't want to. And so you don't. Now this, I can't help but feel is a class thing. I mean, listen, it's cheaper properties, because there's people with less income, typically. And that's where class lies, doesn't it? Your income. What an arrogant and obnoxious thing for me to have done in choosing a house. All of us, when we choose our houses. What an obnoxious, pricky thing to do. Because what? Those cheaper houses in those cheaper areas are hence a lower class. And that's what class is, isn't it? We class, we say the word class and we kind of label it middle, lower, lower, middle, upper, whatever. Lower, middle, lower, upper, lower. All this shit. What we're actually talking about is how much you earn. Because I've worked in different environments, I'm sure we all have. But one time, believe it or not, I was a teacher. I knew that some of the rich kids and some of the poor kids that came could be equally cuntish. That's the truth of it. Kids are kids. People are people. In my job I do now, I deal with people of various financial statuses. It's the rich people you've got to watch. I'm not trying to be all leftish and right on here. It's true. I'm going to start stereotyping positively. A positive stereotype is still a stereotype. So, and in my mind, as I'm saying this, I'm trying to think how to not say it in a bad way, but I'm probably just going to say it and see what happens. People who are, quote unquote, from a lower class and living in those, quote unquote, lower class areas, and probably, yes, they have jobs that earn less than some of us. Straight down the line. Respectful. Not kissing your feet. If you treat them with dignity and respect and speak to them properly, you get it right back. That's all you need to do is just be decent. There's no clever games. They're not trying to catch you out. They're not trying to play anything. They're not thinking 5 steps ahead to benefit themselves. Just be decent people and we'll get on and we'll get through whatever we need to get through, whatever this challenge might be. You know where you stand straight away. And yes, that's why I'm stereotyping. Of course some of them are cunts, but I find them proportionally so much less of them are cuntish. When I deal with people who are obviously from a more financially stable or comfortable stance, the behaviour can be very different. Now, not always. This is a negative stereotype too. And somehow it feels okay, doesn't it? It feels like I'm being quite right on because it's okay to stamp down on the rich, to talk ill of them. That's acceptable. No, I'm not trying to do that either. But I am trying to be honest. And proportionally, I will find what I would call unfair, undignified behaviour in people who have more. Now, that could be because they've got more to defend. It could be because they've had a more privileged, what you might typically call privileged upbringing, be that education or whatever, I don't know, and they feel that they're owed more. Or it's been easier for them to get through things in life, and so when they come to a challenge, they feel more affronted by it. And I'm not sure quite what the truth is. There are class stereotypes, and I'm guilty of them too. And I'm not sure if I'm proud of that, but again, it's the truth of the matter. And so I bought a house before I bought the lighthouse, I bought a house in the worst part, I suppose, of a good area. So let's call that the middle. I would have been wiser to buy a house in the best part of a bad area. I would have spent the same money. I would be in the same circumstances. But I'd have a fucking much bigger garden. Now, I don't like gardening, so it kind of worked out. But I'm not going to try and say I'm a superhero and it was purely for the gardening that I made my final decision. It was not. I was a snob. I wonder if I'd make a different decision this time. If I were to do it all again now, and I suspect I would. So what are these stereotypes we have? What are these prejudices we have with class? I cannot be the only one. And like I say, I consider myself very left-leaning. I do consider myself to be very open-minded, and yet I fell prey to this. Also, I've got to be a realist here. There are some bad areas which are bad for a legitimate reason. That's not to say all the people in it are bad. That is to say that some areas do have drug activity and gang activity, and that makes them a quantifiably bad area. That makes it bad for a reason. That means if you bring up a kid, they are more likely to encounter those types of things. But, again, let's be real, rich kids have got more money to buy that shit. They probably don't have a drug dealer living next door, but I bet they go to school with someone who does. That's all it takes. Bridges are very easily built, especially when you're young. Very easily built. So listen, there you go. It's just a bit of rambling there, inspired by today's royal wedding. If you watched it, I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't watch it, I hope you enjoyed your day. If you're not British and don't give a toss, then maybe you've learned something. But we all know that's quite unlikely, don't we? I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for spending some time with me. I want to thank you for hearing these words. Regardless of where you are, regardless of what class you are, I hope my hoity-toity middle-classness didn't wind anybody up. Once again, get in touch. Anything you want to say, please do. Hit me up on Twitter, @LighthouseAndy. Hit me up on the email, nightnightlighthouse@gmail.com. If you like listening to this, subscribe and never miss an episode. Tell your friends, because friends share things, but not the poor ones, don't tell them. This is our secret. It's middle class and up in here. And so I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you for joining me. I'll talk to you soon.